Hi, fellow beings. This week I wrote something on Facebook and it goes like this. I thought President Trump's tweets about Mayor Khan of London were some of his worst yet, reaffirming that no matter what else I've said, I still dislike Donald Trump and wish we had a better president. Having said that, I also have to add, not only did Buddha vote for Donald Trump, Buddha is Donald Trump. So, I got some reactions to that on Twitter, which Twitter I've never quite understood, but leave that aside. Can you elaborate? I'm not sure what you mean. To which someone named Jesus Lebowski helpfully replied, seems that Brad's Buddha, in quotes, is a substitute for God, and his Buddhism is pantheism. Most Buddhists are pretty esoteric and inconsistent. So, I just thought I'd like to look up this word esoteric. It's one of these words where I think I kind of know what it means, but then I've never seen it defined, so looked it up. Intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest, which is pretty much what I thought it meant, but interesting to see it put that way. And when I look at that, I think, well, I don't think that's a good explanation for what Brad meant. So I'd like to try to explain what Brad meant for you folks out there. I think that if you say my Buddha is a substitute for God and my Buddhism is pantheism, you're probably thinking that I'm putting forward a philosophical proposition that Buddha is everything and everything is Buddha, i.e. God, if you want to go with that, and trying to defend it, or that I would try to defend it. I don't feel like I want to defend this because it's not that kind of a proposition. It doesn't come from, for example, thinking about it and going, well, what's life like? Well, I guess the best explanation is everything is one and we're all together, and yeah, that makes sense. Got it. And it's not also an indoctrinated religious belief that depends for its continued existence, you folks out there believing it. So folks who believe in religions are kind of like that. Their belief depends on others believing it too. So the belief is kind of a feedback loop. It doesn't continue unless a lot of people believe it and reinforce it with each other. That's how religious beliefs, that's how a lot of things that involve belief work. For example, money. Money only works because we all believe in money. If everybody in the world stopped believing in money, then money would be valueless and then the whole system collapses. Luckily, enough people believe in money that it continues to work and we continue to function with it. Same with God and religion and law and things like that. We have to keep believing in these things or they don't exist because they're imaginary things. So God is a kind of an imaginary thing we believe in and we have to convince others to believe in it. But I'd like to talk about where I got this idea that not only did Buddha vote for Donald Trump, Buddha is Donald Trump. I didn't get that idea from reading it or hearing it from others, although you can find echoes of a belief like that in a lot of Buddhist literature. So they do exist, and so one could presume that I, as a Buddhist, have read it in books and convinced myself of it. I would say, as the person who inhabits this body and mind, it doesn't appear to have come that way to me when I think back about how these ideas come spewing out of my mouth sometimes. Rather, I got it from a real experience. So I maintained and continue to maintain my skepticism of anything written anywhere, and this includes when it's written in Buddhist sutras, when it's written by Dogen, no matter what it is, when it's written by me especially, I have a lot of skepticism about it. But I had a kind of faith, one might call it, in my teachers. They seemed to be people who also were highly skeptical and who would not accept things on the basis of hearing it and convincing themselves of it or being indoctrinated into it and so forth. They seem to want to test things, and they seem to offer a way for me to test those things. So I did. So I embarked on this project of sitting Zazen. Sitting Zazen every goddamn day. You know, I'm sure there are exceptions here and there, but a handful of them in the past 30 years. And working with this practice is a gradual calming down of the chatter and noise that goes on in the mind, which might seem like a small thing, but it's really, really big. You don't realize how big it is. I'm not talking about you. I didn't realize, let's say it that way, how big of a deal that was when I first embarked on this. But I was willing to try the experiment, to try to see what happened if I got the chatter in my brain down to a manageable level. At that point, things start to become apparent that weren't apparent before, and I think they aren't apparent because you're just so much chatter going on and so much trying to work it out and figure it out and think of who's doing this and what's doing what and who's bad and who's good and all the rest of it. You get that down to a manageable amount. And for a lot of us who do this, there comes this interesting tipping point. And people call that tipping point enlightenment experiences or Kensho or Satori and all these other mythological sort of names. But I don't think we need to make it such a big deal. I think it's better to just call it a tipping point. Reaching that tipping point, one of the things that became very clear to me is that, how do I say this? That there had been something in my personal experience from day one that I called me. So I identified this part of my experience as me, and I'm sure we all have this. And I had learned that something was unique to me, that it was my experience and my feeling and my outlook on the world. And to an extent, I found that to be true. But what happened during this tipping point was to realize that another aspect of this is the absolute identity of that thing that I had called me and everything in the universe. And if you have not experienced this, I don't know what you'll think of it. You'll probably think of it the way I did, that these crazy people are saying this thing, or you might say, that guy Brad or whoever you hear it from, or Krishnamurti or any of these people. You might think, maybe they're right. I don't know, but it still seems like a speculative thing. So you're in the position of this Jesus Lebowski who says Brad is just talking about pantheism. And you got it fixed, and you got it. That's fine. Got it. Pantheism. Okay, slot it into that place. Done. Go on to the next thing. That's kind of how I thought, but I trusted Tim McCarthy, and I trusted Gudo Nishijima, and I trusted some of the other people I worked with in this project enough to do the experiment, which is a pretty intense experiment. I'm asked at 18 years old. You can probably hear the garbage trucks outside, by the way, but we'll ignore that. I'm asked at 18 years old to dedicate my life to a project that will take decades to reach fruition and might not reach fruition at all, depending on circumstances beyond my control. That's a big thing to undertake, and that's a kind of a leap of faith. I don't know why I did it, but I did it. So I went through that process and reached the tipping point, and part of that tipping point was to understand very clearly that my mind was not my mind at all, and was not. I'm going to try to talk over the garbage trucks. This is kind of poetic, isn't it? That there's garbage trucks going on while I'm spewing garbage out of my mouth. So let's keep them going. So reaching this tipping point and realizing that what I thought was me was not exclusive to Brad Warner. So one way I like to explain that is the very thing that looks out from my eyes also looks out from your eyes and from the garbage man's eyes, or garbage person, we don't know because we can't go out there and check their gender, and from everybody's eyes, including Donald Trump and including everyone who voted for Donald Trump. I'm picking Trump and his voters because that's a hot button topic. And the reason I pick it is because when we hear about sort of universal oneness, most people who get into that and who espouse it are like, I'm one with the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and coexist and everybody's beautiful. Isn't it wonderful to be so So the people who love oneness generally hate Donald Trump, right? Because they want a oneness that excludes Donald Trump and excludes, who's that guy, Sean Spicer and Simmons. Isn't there a guy, Simmons? I don't follow enough of this stuff. Excludes all those guys, excludes George W. Bush, excludes Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein and all the rest of these bad people, right? But includes the puppies and the flowers and the kittens and the fluffy bumblebees and whatever. And I like to kind of bring that down to, if you want to talk about oneness of all things in the universe, and then you exclude Donald Trump and you exclude the people who voted for him and the fascists and, the baddies, you're not getting what this implies. So one aspect of this experience that I've talked about is that it happened outside of time, which is weird to say, but it did. It literally happened outside of time. But if we want to place a date on it, it happened sometime, I think, in the late 1990s. I find this interesting, and I've mentioned this before, that this biggest, most significant experience of my life so knocked me for a loop that I literally don't know when it happened. I've tried to piece together just from things, little songs that I wrote around then and stuff like that, to try to figure out exactly when it happened, because when I used to write songs, I would put the date that I wrote them. And piecing it together, I think it happened in the late 90s. I'm almost like a detective of my own life to figure this out. But what I do know is one of the first significant world things that happened after this change occurred in my life was the attacks on New York City on September 11th, 2001. And I remember my response to that was a feeling that it was my responsibility. Now, I don't mean that it was Brad Warner's responsibility and that somebody should lock me up, or if the Secret Service is watching this, that I was actually behind Osama bin Laden and they should come get me. No, that isn't what I mean. I mean, though, that exactly this same me that looks out from these eyes looked out from Mohammed Atta's eyes as he flew the plane into the Trade Center, and looked out from the eyes of all the people looking up at the explosions and going kind of, wow. That part scared me a lot. I remember seeing the footage of the attacks. Perhaps I was even seeing it live because I was watching it on television, and feeling that feeling of wow. People felt excited and invigorated by this terrible tragedy, which is maybe one of the reasons why we continue to have these tragedies, because they are so exciting, and so, isn't that great? Boom, 3,000 people died in 1 second. Oh my God, and a big explosion, once tallest buildings in the world falling down. Whoa, that's like fucking action picture stuff there in real life. That's exciting. Maybe this is one of the reasons we continue to have those, because we're craving a kind of excitement in our lives. And I felt that was also part of my responsibility. So the reason I bring up Trump and his followers is that's a very fashionable thing for the kinds of people who read the kinds of books that I write and read the kind of blogs that I write and listen to the kind of talks that I give. That's the kind of thing that's very fashionable among those people to hate. To go, I hate Trump. You know, you can see so many Buddhists who hate Trump. And my feeling is, as I said, I dislike Trump, you know, especially when he says something like he did about Mayor Khan. Those of you who don't remember, or maybe you're watching this 3 years from now and everybody's forgotten, there was a terrorist attack in London, and the mayor of London, who happens to be Muslim, said something about, you'll see increased police presence, and that's nothing to be alarmed about. Trump deliberately takes it the wrong way and tries to characterize the Muslim mayor of London saying there's nothing to be alarmed about with terrorism, which is bullshit, you know, and it's obvious bullshit, and it's done for political and personal gain, and I hate that about Trump. But of course I hate that about all presidents. You know, the thing about Trump is he's not as finessed about doing that as somebody like Barack Obama, you know, that everybody loves. Barack Obama could do the same sort of thing, but do it with such finesse that you wouldn't even realize it was happening. So in one way, it's an improvement to have Trump, because when he does it, he's so clumsy with it that you're like, yeah, there you go again, Trump. You know, any idiot can see what you're doing there. So, but we hate Trump, and we think that Trump is different from us, that he's someone else, that he's not me, he's Trump. In a sense, that's true, but he's also you, and you are contributing to him in the same way that he is contributing to you. So you hate Trump because he's not you, and you're going to defeat that bad, evil Trump, or the bad, evil people who believe in him and all that shit, outside of you. And you're taking exactly the same view of Trump that, for example, the terrorists who did those terrible things in London, now in Tehran yesterday, in Manchester a few days before that, in Paris last year, and all the rest of it. You're taking the same view that they do, that the evil is located outside of you, and you're just going to attack it, and if you attack and kill it, the evil is gone. Doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So if you're going to be part of the resistance and resist Donald Trump, it's useful to also understand that who you are resisting is not someone outside yourself, but yourself. How this works out politically, you're going to have to work that out for your own selves. My take on it is to try to understand, well, here's the influence that this piece of me can have on that piece of me, which is minuscule. So I'm not going to expend a whole lot of energy trying to influence something that this body mind, this individual body mind, can't really do a whole lot about. I will devote my energies into other areas, which is perhaps to do a callback to the earlier part of this video where the esoteric part comes in. Perhaps I am being a little esoteric because I don't imagine that most of the people who might see this video are going to understand it. I hope you don't find that insulting, dear viewer, because maybe you're one of the ones who will understand it. I don't know. But I'm sort of imagining a larger group of people who are watching this going, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Or they think they know what I'm talking about, but they really don't, and they're misconstruing it terribly. You know, there's a lot of that around. And then when I get feedback from people who read me, I get that. You know, I get, I must not have said that very well. So I realize that there's a limited ability to understand this sort of thing. But I don't come at it from the point of view that I've decided this thing and I'm trying to convince you. I don't really care that much whether you believe it or not. I mean, I guess it would be nice if more people believed it. I don't know. I'd probably be annoyed if too many people believed me, if they believed me just on the basis of being convinced by me, then I would think, that's no good. So I'm not really in the business of trying to convince you. However, I think this point of view, this understanding that we are all engaged in one thing, that we are all the same thing looking out of different pairs of eyes, is a valuable insight that many people, including the historical Buddha and Dogen and many, many others, really a lot of people, have tried to bring into the world gradually by just saying what little they can and hoping that maybe somebody picks up on it. And so that's all I'm trying to do. I put it out there and I hope somebody picks up on it. But I don't think the wider population is going to get it. I'm not going to stand on a soapbox outside of, Pershing Square in downtown LA like some people do and shout about it and try to convince others, because it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. So I'm not worried about that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. So that's what I said, and that's kind of what I think I meant by it. If you enjoyed this, there's links below and places you can donate. I make most of my living through your donations. They've been coming in pretty good lately, and that's nice because I don't have to worry so much as I had in past years. But I also realize that unless I continue saying this, the donations don't come in. So there's the donation things are down below. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on some other format, go to YouTube and then you'll see the donation links and you can send $1 or whatever, and that's great. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.